What was a little bit paradoxical with this fight is that most of us agree AJ definitely did better, and yet many people still scored it the same as the first fight, about 9-3. Difference being AJ clearly won that 9th round, which I think actually has gone on to be a little bit exaggerated. Some people are saying Usyk was on the verge of being stopped. When you watch it back, not a lot lands clean. He managed to negate what was coming his way, took the sting out with the punches, blocked a lot of those body shots. Okay, when I had a pint in my hand and I'm watching it live, I'm thinking, oh boy, the table's about to turn. But that's because it was predicated on this narrative that once the big man cuts loose, he is going to do damage. That didn't happen. AJ was unable to get in that ideal positioning I spoke about in my prediction. He needed to aggressively jab his way in, perhaps a bit more to the body, pin Usyk closer to the ropes or the corner, and then unload with well thought out combinations. But his work was a little bit hurried. He was over eager to get something going, which you've got to applaud him for. He tried to make that big rush, but it was more passion than effectiveness. And then just like all the great fighters do, Usyk responded in the very next round. The combination started to flow. There were some nice backhands to the body, mixed in with the right jab up top again, mixing up his combinations, never leaving a trace, which was one of the keys in the first fight. Usyk doesn't get stuck in patterns. He keeps switching it up, keeps moving his head. So even if you do have the reach advantage, you see, if you keep missing, you're going to start getting closer in frustration, trying to make something happen, and then he'll take advantage of you. There were so many things Usyk was doing that perhaps people don't pick up on, that it's just going to exhaust your opponent. And in that 10th round, AJ looked to be in a bit of a no man's land again, near the end, upright, taking shots consistently. Perhaps just for a lack of power from Usyk, otherwise he would have got the stoppage. Now, in the early goings, and actually for the majority of the fight, I liked AJ's demeanour. Here was a guy who meant business. He had the mean look on his face. I noticed sometimes when he got hit, he almost did a bit of a snarl and shook his head like, nah, this is still my night. He really came into the ring with belief, and that helps explain the rant afterwards as he struggled to process those emotions. In the early goings, he did pretty good, and he was throwing that right hand with more spite, on counters to the body, whereas in the first fight, it was almost just like he was throwing arm punches, too concerned about possibly emptying the tank. Yeah, there's loads of retrospective geniuses out there, isn't there? Oh, he should have made it a 6-round fight. He should have just gone for it, played into his strengths. Yeah, well, he may have been taken advantage of then, even easier. As per usual, Usyk kept tinkering with the range, kept switching up his tactics. There was a moment where I thought, oh God, he's a little bit quiet, isn't he now? And he certainly didn't have the very good first round he did in the first fight. But before you start panicking, thinking there's something wrong, that he's perhaps got too old, he turns it on again and the combinations start flowing. Now, regarding AJ's post-fight rant, that a lot of people have already crucified him for, I don't mind too much. Look, it wasn't a good look, and he's already tried to apologise, and people probably won't forget it either. A lot of people have already made up their minds about AJ, so he's going to pay that kind of public penalty, if you will, in the years that will follow. But what I wanted to pick from that rant was the little excuse he worked in about the smaller past heavyweights, the Jack Dempseys, the Rocky Marcianos. Yeah, we know you can't throw as many punches as those guys, because you are a bit bigger, but you have certain advantages, like your reach, your big power. You were unable to make those advantages count, and that is your fault. What AJ was kind of saying, you could say a bit of an ironic realization, is that whole rhetoric about I'm still on the job, I'm still learning, doesn't wash. You get to a point, you've basically crystallized, you're not going to evolve much more. The very best fighters of all time started very young, when they were most impressionable, the muscles were, the limbs, and they learnt their craft at a very early age. Just think of a young Floyd Mayweather and probably how intuitive boxing was to him already in his teens. Joshua never had that. He went forward, he's done very well with what he's got, but he wasn't able to adapt, he wasn't able to make it count at the very highest level, and that's just how it goes. He has to accept that, and because of the amount of money he commands, like I said in my prediction, his career will go on. And make no mistake, the Anthony Joshua he just defeated, who came in so focused, who came in having visualized his hand being raised at the end of it all, to soak up those shots, to keep the game plan tight, consistent, to outlast him over the 36 minutes again, really does show greatness. Joshua is no cupcake, to use a Pully Malignaggi phrase. He is, if a bit of a flawed, still an excellent heavyweight, and a heck of a challenge for somebody naturally smaller. Even if Usyk goes on to lose to Tyson Fury, he is still very probably going to be remembered as a greater fighter, pound for pound.